welcome back to my own worst enemy. If you will recall, when I did the unboxing, it was a double unboxing video of Across 5 Aprils and Battle Hymn Volume 1, Gettysburg and Pea Ridge. When I did that unboxing, I mentioned that I wanted to do a playthrough of a scenario from each of those games so we could kind of compare and contrast, the improvements that Battle Hymn has supposedly made or not made, compare how the original Across 5 Aprils game played compared to the more modernized version of this game, if you will. So I'm going to start with Pea Ridge in Across 5 Aprils, mostly because Battle Hymn Volume 1 only includes Gettysburg and Pea Ridge, and I did not want to do I didn't want to do the Battle of Gettysburg. That's a bit more than I wanted to take on. So Pea Ridge is a smaller scenario. We should be able to get a good feel of how the games compare by playing this smaller video. So we are going to do that. It's been a while since I've done a playthrough. I have been working on my camera work and my audio work for these videos. I think I've improved the audio. I think I may have a handle on that finally. It's one of the, I don't know why, but audio is one of the tougher things to do when I'm doing these videos. There's a lot involved in this. The camera has always been fairly good. You can see this is 4K, and I post these videos in 4K, but you can almost see, and this is a problem with Across 5 Aprils, the hex numbers are really hard to see, and so what you're seeing is actually a very good representation of what I'm seeing. It's just really hard to see, but you can tell that the video is sharper, and I'm going to be adding in a second camera to this so that when we're playing, I want to go in for some closer shots to show, a little bit closer on what's happening on the board, so you should see that. So that's it for the improvements. Let's go ahead and start talking about Across 5 Aprils, the Battle of Pea Ridge. In this scenario, basically we're going to have 2 days of fighting. The Confederates have snuck around the Union, and they're coming in from the back and surprising the Union. The Union thought the Confederates were going to come in from this side of the board. In fact, they, during the night, moved their forces and they came in this way. You'll note, so over here, Shiloh, this map we will not be using. That's one of the other scenarios in Across 5 April, so don't worry about the terrain here. So the Confederates are going to start turn 1 coming onto the board at locations A and B. Of course, they'll have their choice of where they want to come on the board in location B. We are looking at, so the way that either side's going to win this game, there are no victory points. There are victory locations. The Confederates want to seize these victory locations that the Union currently owns. There's Elkhorn Tavern, there is Union headquarters, and you see this red star denotes that they are victory locations, and then Leesburg down here. So if the Union can hold on to 2 of those locations at the end of day 1, they will have won. Let me make sure this is right, because there's a day 1 and day 2 victory conditions, and I want to make sure I'm telling you right here. And this is, of course, the rule book for, actually this is the exclusive rules just for this scenario, and there's not a lot. So at the end of day 1, if the Union player controls all 3, so the Union player has to keep control of all 3 of those hexes at the end of day 1. The Confederate player needs to control just 2 of those at the end of day 1. And then if it's a draw, none of those conditions are met, then we'll go to day 2 and we will see who wins at the end of day 2. That's the victory conditions. So let's go ahead and zoom in just a little bit. I'm going to show you the turn track and the way the chip pull works. And so here we are looking at the turn track. So you have a game turn marker, and that'll move along as we progress through the game turns. And one of the cool things about this map, or this section of the map anyway, is it shows you exactly which units, which reinforcements come in per turn. So if you look up here, you can see that Cars has an artillery division that'll come in turn 2, and it says USA to remind you that to put that there. Also, the way this game works is when you set the game up, the upper right-hand corner has either a map location that a unit will start in, or it has a turn and location number where the unit will enter the board. So all of these units will come into the game through each turn in a given location. So if you see it like the 2C, this one comes in turn 2 at location C on the map. And the Union forces are up top of this, and then the Confederate forces, you can see, would be along the bottom. The Confederates they start with all the units they're going to get. They're not going to get any more. And so as these units come in, we will put them onto the board. And then if a new division comes in, and these units are broken out by divisions, they're color coded. So once we get to turn 4, we have Davis's 3rd division will come in. So we will put his phase marker into the chip pull cup so that he can begin to start moving as well. And that's about it. So the turns are broken out into time. It looks like it's per hour. Once we get to 5 p.m., we'll do our victory determination. And let's take a look at the phase markers in a little bit more detail. And so what you're looking at here, these are the phase markers that go into that chip pull cup. And basically, you're going to have 2 combat markers. So when that combat chit is pulled, any unit that's in the zone of control of an enemy unit, there will be combat. These are the unit phase markers. So this basically will show you which unit you can activate per turn. So we'll pull a chit out. Let's say we pull the independent chit. So any chit that's marked, or any unit that's marked in white for the independents, will get to move for that current turn, or that current phase, I guess you'd call it. Of course, you can see one of the problems with across 5 Aprils, the unit counters are not the easiest in the world to read. It's not, on camera here, it's not quite as bad. McCullough's division, you can see, is this really, really bad yellow color. And in person, if you're looking at this, I can hardly read it. It looks almost like a blank counter. It's so bad. And it's really, really hard to read some of these colors. Even the independent one is not so easy to read. So there's one complaint we're probably going to come back to when we actually compare and contrast these 2 games, because I don't think Battle Hymn Volume 1, I don't think the counters are nearly this bad. So let's go back now to the big map. Okay, so that was a quick look at the turns and the chip markers. Let's see, we have our terrain chart is down here. So this will tell us our effects for combat, our column shifts when we go to do combat, and of course the movement cost to enter the different terrain types. And let's see, I've got over here somewhere, I've got a player's aid card. So this also has the terrain effects chart on it for the game, sequence of play, morale checks, and of course the combat results tables. There's some odd modifiers and some explanations of retreating and things you can or can't do. So we will refer to that. And let's go back in again real quick so that I can talk about the unit chits themselves. So we'll just take another quick look closer onto the map board here. So if we look at this unit, we can see that there are 3 numbers at the bottom of the unit. The first number is the attack strength, second number is defense, and that third number is movement. So that would be your movement points to move into the terrain, how much movement you can expend per terrain. The number above it, the +1, that would be the unit's morale. So a unit can have 0, 1, -1, and that will affect combat and also morale checks should the unit have to go through it. We've already talked about that number up in the upper right hand corner. That's simply, in this case, turn 1, these units come in location D on the map, so that's what that's showing. And when the unit comes into the map, they will actually pay the terrain cost to enter that location and then keep moving. So that is important to remember. So I think, and there's a name, just kind of more flavor for this brigade. Has a name, they all do, and it just does more for flavor. So that is a unit counter close up on what they mean. So let's go back to the big map. All right, and so that I think is pretty much it. We will go ahead and get started with the game. What I'm going to do is I'm not going to play an entire game in one sitting. Well, I may, but you won't see it. Another thing I'm going to try to do is break these videos up into shorter segments. I've been running an hour, 2 hours on some of these things. I'm going to try to cut that down to maybe 30 minutes to an hour at most. It'll make it a little more manageable, and it's probably easier for you guys to watch the smaller videos versus the marathon videos. And if that's not true, let me know in the comments. But I think it's probably better off for all of us if we're watching smaller video segments, and maybe I'll do a turn or 2 at a time. And I'm also working on other game table space to do these videos. So hopefully I can have, at some point, I can have 2 videos going. Like I said, I really want to do another long video, more of a grand campaign video, and I'm working on some ideas for that. So hopefully I will have something on that soon, where I will start a huge playthrough of some larger game at the same time I'm doing these smaller ones. So let's keep that in mind as I pull out the sequence of play summary here. So first thing you're going to do, both players place into the phase marker cup, and my phase marker cup is this, you can hardly see it, but it's this easy roller dice cup that I am going to use. So we're going to, all the phased markers go into that cup, and we will pull from that. Now, the way that's going to work, I've already told you. One thing to note, there are 2 of the units have duplicate phase marker chits. That's what happens is you play the first chit. Well, you don't have to. You get the opportunity to play the first chit that comes up. You could choose not to and wait and delay the movement on the unit that's chosen. But if you do play it when it first comes up, then the second chit has no effect. So basically this gives and the Confederate's the only one that has the duplicate unit phase marker. And so it's just it gives the Confederate a little more flexibility in when they can activate their units. So that's why you see duplicate markers there. So the combat phase markers do go in at the beginning of this. Let's go ahead and start. So they do go in at the beginning of the game. These Confederate markers, because the units are coming into the game on turn 1 at A and B, they will go into the cup. And then these Union markers, we do have a card, 4th Division is out. So there's a unit that starts on the map at Pratt's store. So this marker will go into the cup. The Independents are also out on the board. They're up in, what is that called up there? Tanyard, I think it is. So they're sitting there. The red cube signifies that they cannot move the first turn. So that's a rule. It's a special rule just to this peerage scenario. So they're going to have to sit there for 1 turn, but their marker does go into the cup. So we'll put that in. And that's because there is another independent unit, I think. Yeah, it's coming on the board along with these other units at area D. And of course, the Orange Division, 1st Division, also comes into the board. And another thing that's kind of neat on these markers is it shows you in the upper right hand corner of a phase marker, that little number 1 shows you that this goes into the cup on turn 1. So, and the other ones have it too. They'll have a 4 for turn 4 and 6 and 8, so that make it a little bit easier to know what goes into that cup. And then back to the sequence of play. Now the way this is going to work is, if this were a 2-player game, the Confederate player would draw first, and whatever chit markers drawn would get played by either player. But since it's just me, I'm going to be pulling them all, as I usually do. So we're going now into what's called the operations segment, and this is where we will draw markers from the phase cup and go from there. And then that's basically a turn. I mean, it's not much to this game. It is rules light, as I mentioned in the unboxing video. Not a lot to the game turns. So I'm just going to go ahead and probably go through an entire pull of chits here and then stop it. So let's get to it. I'm going to give this a good shake. Going to reach in and grab a chit. Let's see what we get. The first chit pulled is the Missouri State Guard price. So that is the Confederate units up here at location B. So let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit and take a look at what's going to happen up there. Okay, so Price is coming on. We've pulled his chit, so now he's coming on location B. Price has a couple of brigades. There's Price Brigade, there's the Little Brigade. Who is that? Slack Brigade. And then he has artillery, Price A and Price B. So with that chit pull, what's going to happen is these units are going to come onto the board. So I'm going to go ahead and move each artillery unit. I'm going to move artillery unit B to this B hex, and then A is going to come into this hex. Now, because this unit moved into a zone of control of an enemy unit, and that's these 6 surrounding hex, he can move no further. He has to stop in that enemy unit zone of control. I'm going to move Price, let's see, and because this one did not move into a zone of control, he can continue moving actually. So he has 3 movement points. He's on a trail, so he expended 1 to get into the this hex. It's woods, but the trail negates that. So he could actually move, and I think a trail is, if I remember correctly, a trail is, I think it's just 1 movement point. A road would be half. So yeah, he could still move to here. So he could go 1, 2, 3. So let's do that. Let's go ahead and have him move up that way. And then Price, I'm going to have to do the same thing. So Price will come in at 1, 2, 3. Now he can actually go another 1, 4, but I'm going to keep him with that artillery. And then I'm going to move Little and Slack in with this artillery unit. Well, let's see. Actually, I can't do that because there are stacking penalties. So I believe I can only have 2 units in a stack at once. Let me check that real quick. Yeah, so you can only have 2 units at one time in any hex. You can move through a hex, but you can't end in a hex. So I'm going to take Slack. He's going to go 1. And then I got to be careful because this is a creek, I believe, and that will shift the combat results not in good favor for the Confederates. So let's see, what do I want to do with this guy? So he's going to come on at 1, and then to enter the woods hex, it would be another 3. So what I'm going to do is move him to here. He's probably still going to get that penalty I was just talking about because looks like there's a creek that runs between all of these units. So I'm going to do that. That's going to be the Price's Missouri State Guard phase marker. That's what we moved. So let's go back now to the main map. Okay, so that was the movement up here, and now we go back to the chit cup to see who else goes. If I can grab a chit here, let's see. And it is the, oh, well, that's the McCullough, I can tell you, because it's almost impossible to read. So the Confederates get to go again. And let's go ahead and move those units. I will not zoom in. And I'm, again, playing around with the camera shots here. I'm just going to move these without switching cameras just to speed things up. Just a hint. It's the same thing. So McCullough has a brigade, couple of brigades here. He's got an A and B. Pike is a brigade of Indian units, and there's another brigade and another artillery unit. So what we're going to do here is, and they're all mostly movement 4. So we're going to move along this track, this trail. So let's see, we can go 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's get the artillery moving first, since it can only go 3. So we'll have him go 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to take this brigade and we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we're going to move this brigade 1, 2, 3, 4. This brigade's going to go 1, 2, 3. We'll leave him with the artillery. And then this brigade is going to go 1, 2. So they're kind of marching along this trail, working their way towards probably Leetown. And that is the second chit that we pulled. Let's get another one. And it is the Confederate combat phase. So we're going to see some combat, our first combat of the game. So I do want to zoom back in, and we're going to see how combat works. So let's take a look at that now. Okay, so our first combat of the game. Basically, the way combat works, let me grab the terrain effects chart. The player's aid card is what I should say, not the terrain effects chart. So this is going to have our well, you can't see it there, but I will talk you through it. So, okay, so basically what's going to happen, we're going to add up the attacker's strength and the defender. In this case, it's the 24th, and they only have a defense value of 1, so it's going to be pretty brutal here, I think. So if we add up all the attacker's strength, we have 1, 2, 3, 7, and this artillery is bombarding. Now this artillery, because it's adjacent to this unit, I think that it will suffer from counterattack, so that's something we got to keep in mind. So basically, it's going to be 7-1. Those are going to be our combat odds, and that's pretty terrible. And then they are, of course, firing across the creek, so that's going to be a column shift to the left, it says. So the highest combat odds you can have are 6-1. So the 7-1 is going to push that back to 6-1 with the shift. And also, I think, let's see, this is I think that's considered a wooded hex. So there is a trail in there though, but I don't think it matters when you're in combat. So that's going to be another, I think that's going to be another combat shift. Another shift. So let's go back again to the big map so I can show you the player's aid card and the combat tables and everything. So as I was saying, it was 7-1 before any column shifts. So they are attacking across a creek, I believe, and that's another problem with this game. Is I'm pretty sure all these are creeks. It's hard to tell though, because the rivers, the creeks, and the streams all look very similar in this game. But I'm pretty sure this is a creek, so we're going to call it a creek. So there's going to be one column shift to the left because there's a creek there. So let me grab another marker here. So we were at 7-1, and as you can see on the chart, you can only go up to 6-1. So 7-1 would put us here. So we're going to be at 6-1, and then going across that creek is another 1. So basically 7-1, and we're going to have 2 shifts to the left. So 7 is going to take us down to, or 2 shift left is going to go to 6-5. So that's the way it's going to work. So they're going to be attacking at a 5-1, and then of course the Union will get to do a counterattack. So let's do that. I'm going to use, I've got these handy dandy, these are Chess X dice that I bought, a blue and a gray, of course, blue for the Union, gray for the Confederates. So let's roll and see what the Confederates inflict upon the Union. So it's a 2 for the Confederates and a 3 for the Union. Well, a 2 result on this combat result chart is 2R. So that's 2-step reduction with mandatory retreat. And I believe if we look and see, I'm going to take this marker off. I think this is a 1-step unit, so I'm pretty sure he's dead. Yep. So, so this unit is eliminated, so we'll just move him off the board. And so now when you're attacking well, wait a minute, I think I'm getting ahead of myself there. I still think there's a counterattack possible, so we gotta resolve that. Yeah, so these results are simultaneous. So it's possible that one of these units could advance into this vacated hex, but depending on how the counterfire turns out, that may not happen. So let's take a look at, Price was at, well, it's not going to matter here because Price has an attack value of 0, so I don't think that's going to matter. Let's see. So basically it's not going to happen. So now one of these Confederate units can choose to advance. So I'm just going to have this brigade move into here. That is going to end the Confederate combat phase, and we will continue on now back to drawing the next phase marker. All right, let's see what we get here. I'll reach in here, and the next phase marker is, so this is Price again, the Missouri State Guard. So if you recall, since we chose to play this chip the first time, this has no effect. We'll just set that aside and draw again. And we draw the 4th Division car. So that is, the only unit is this one for the Union. So we will have, this is Dodge. He is at Pratt's store right now. I'm going to have him move north to try to meet these Confederate forces. Now this is a road, and it's called Telegraph Road here. This is a road, so movement cost here is half. So you move 2 hexes to move 1. So if we've got 4, we can go 1, 2. Now which way do I want to go? I think I want to keep going forward. 3, 4. So let's make sure that's right. We started at Pratt's store. It's a half, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4. So he can move all the way up to there. So he's going to try to get up to Elkhorn Tavern as fast as he can. And that's the only 4th Division unit on the map right now, I believe. The other 2 come in turns 2 and 3. I think these are all orange and an independent. Yeah, so let's go back to the cup. And it is the 1st Division. So the 1st Division is the Union Orange Division. So they can now come onto the board. And I think I'm going to have them advance towards Leetown. I think I called that Leesburg earlier when I was talking. That is Leetown. Okay, so this brigade can move 4. This is a trail, so it's 1. So you can go 1, 2, 3, 4. And I don't, the creek, let's see, the creek costs, and again, I don't know if that's a creek or a stream. If it's a stream, it's +1 to the movement cost. We're just going to stay on the trail and move. This brigade's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. This independent cannot move yet because his chit was not pulled. So we'll leave him here. And then this artillery can go 1, 2, 3. And so they're moving towards Leetown because I'm sure that's where these Confederates are headed. Let's go back now and pull another phase marker. And it is the Union combat phase chit. So there's no Confederates in zone control of any Union forces, so that gets ignored. And then we'll pull another chit, phase chit marker, whatever you call it, phase marker chit. It's independent, so there is 1 independent. It's this cavalry unit which has a movement factor of 6. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm going to move him all the way just outside of Leetown. And that's going to end the independence. And then I think there's 1 chit left in here. And I think it's probably one we've seen before. It is. It's that McCullough division down here, which has already moved. Can't move again. So that's it. The cup is empty. We have gone through 1 complete, not turn yet because it's, let's go back to sequence of play. We've gone through the operations segment is what I'm trying to say. And then, so the next step in the sequence of play is the game turn advancement segment. And basically that tells us to move the game turn marker to the next space, and a new game begins with the phase marker cup. So what that's going to mean for us here is we are going to move, the game turn marker will go up to 10 a.m. turn 2. And when we do that, this artillery piece, car artillery piece, will start at 2C. So what's going to happen is it comes into the map here, turn 2, and when we pull that phase marker chit, the brown phase marker chit, then this artillery unit will get to come onto the board. So that's it for turn 1. I am going to end it here. Like I said, I'm going to try to keep these things a little shorter and see how it plays out. And I would really like your feedback on this one. If you like the camera close-ups, the audio if it's better, the video if it's better. And let me know in the comments down below. I am continually trying to improve these, I promise you. So hopefully they will just continue to get better and better. As always, thank you for watching, and come back next time because we will do at least another complete turn. And like I said, depending on how fast I play these, I will try to keep the time to 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, whatever I can. So I may get a turn or two in depending on how fast we go through it. As always, thanks for watching. If you like what you see, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel so that I can continue to, as I say, improve the video and bring you more of these games.